27 years. 27 years. For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice. We are here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis, aka KEEFE D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur.
On September 29, 2023, Dwayne Keith Davis, alias KEEFE D, was taken into custody by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police in connection with the murder of arguably the most influential rapper in hip-hop's history. After being arraigned in court, the former gangster revealed that everything he said in interviews was only for entertainment purposes. However, new footage has been uncovered and will change everything in this case. KEEFE D's confession caught on tape. KEEFE D has recently made jaw-dropping claims about his comments on the case. In a court filing, KEEFE D's legal team argues that his interviews discussing Tupac's death were purely for entertainment purposes. They assert that he operated under the assumption of having immunity, and the truthfulness of his statements remains unverified. These claims have ignited a firestorm of debate and speculation, leaving fans and critics questioning the credibility of KEEFE D's narrative. To understand the significance of KEEFE D's recent claims, let's first take a look at his background and his role in the investigation. On the night of September 7, 1996, Tupac was shot multiple times while in a car near the Las Vegas Strip. He was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries 6 days later. The murder sent shockwaves through the music industry and left fans mourning the loss of one of the greatest rappers of all time. As the investigation into Tupac's murder unfolded, KEEFE D's name emerged as a key person of interest. His close association with Bad Boy Records and his reputation in the Compton street scene made him a person worth investigating. Authorities believed that KEEFE D might have valuable information about the events leading up to Tupac's death. Over the years, KEEFE D has given numerous interviews discussing his alleged involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur. These interviews have captivated audiences and fueled speculation about the true circumstances surrounding the rapper's death. However, it is important to note that the truthfulness of KEEFE D's statements has never been verified. In recent developments, KEEFE D's legal team has made shocking claims about the nature of these interviews. They argue that KEEFE D's comments were produced for financial gain and entertainment purposes, and that he operated under the assumption of having immunity. They claim that others, including former LAPD detective Greg Kading, had already profited from the situation. This raises concerns about the motives behind these interviews and the potential impact on the investigation. This revelation has raised questions about the credibility of his statements and the impact they may have on the ongoing investigation. The book and video interviews were produced for a financial benefit under the belief that Dwayne had immunity, KEEFE D's attorneys revealed in court. The truthfulness of the content of the interviews was never verified. The book and interviews were done for entertainment purposes and to make money from a situation that Kading and others had already profited. KEEFE D's lawyers further assert that prosecutors failed to present independent evidence connecting him to the shooting. Instead, they relied heavily on KEEFE D's book, Compton Street Legend, and what they described as an astounding amount of hearsay. These claims have added another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. It is important to remember that KEEFE D has pleaded not guilty to the charges of first-degree murder in connection with Tupac Shakur's death. His upcoming trial will undoubtedly shed more light on the events of that fateful night in 1996 and the role KEEFE D may have played, if any. However, prosecutors have not remained silent in the face of these claims. They argue that KEEFE D's alleged immunity is unfounded and that the interviews he gave were not protected by any legal agreement. They contend that KEEFE D's statements should be treated as evidence and subjected to scrutiny, rather than dismissed as mere entertainment. The prosecution's response raises an important question. If KEEFE D truly believed he had immunity, why did he choose to speak publicly about the case? Critics argue that his decision to give interviews and write a book undermines the credibility of his claim. After all, if he truly had immunity, why would he need to profit from the situation? However, it is important to note that the burden of proof lies with KEEFE D and his legal team. They must provide compelling evidence to support their claim of immunity and convince the court of its validity. Until then, the controversy surrounding KEEFE D's alleged immunity will continue to cast a shadow over the investigation into Tupac's murder. One thing may undermine KEEFE D's defense: tapes of his confession to the rapper's murder, which date back to 2008. It all started in 2008 when KEEFE D was arrested in a PCP ring case. According to reports, the feds had been gathering evidence on the drug ring that KEEFE D ran and had enough intel to put him away for 25 years. As cops normally do, they enticed KEEFE D to tell them what happened the night Tupac was shot dead.
And we put an ironclad case against him, approach him, and say, here's the deal, KEEFE D, we have questions about these murders. If you don't cooperate, you're going to prison for the rest of your life, and so are several members of your family who are caught up in your drug organization.
Well, everyone who was involved had long died, including the shooter. And with the extra motivation on the table, you best believe KEEFE D sang like a bird for 3 straight hours.
He confesses to his involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur in Las Vegas in 1996. He tells us that his nephew, Orlando Anderson, was in the same car with him, which was the white Cadillac.
After truth-telling on his nephew, the drug case against KEEFE D was dropped and he walked away a free man. For many people, this would have been a second chance at life, a chance to start over again. However, a few years later, in 2011, ex-cop Greg Kading published the book Murder Rap, which highlighted KEEFE D's confession in detail. Greg Kading is an author and former Los Angeles Police Department detective. He is best known for working on a multi-law enforcement task force that investigated the murders of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. Apart from that, he was instrumental in getting KEEFE D to spill the beans on Tupac's murder. The recordings that the cops made of KEEFE D confessing to Tupac's murder detailed disturbing evidence that even implicated P. Diddy, who apparently wanted to have Suge Knight and Tupac killed. By KEEFE D's account, Combs and himself discussed the hit on Shakur once at a concert in Anaheim and a couple of times at Greenblatt's Deli on the Sunset Strip. He took me downstairs and he's like, "Man, I want to get rid of them dudes, man." I was like, "We'll wipe their out quick, man, it's nothing," KEEFE D revealed to the feds. At first, Diddy only wanted Suge dead. However, as KEEFE D revealed to the feds, after Tupac made the brutal diss track aimed at Bad Boy Records, he was added to the kill list. When Combs asked about Shakur and Knight, would he always say both of them? A detective can be heard asking KEEFE D during the interrogation. He added the boy Shakur on after he made a record, the ex-gangster replied. Before that, it was just Suge, and then after Hit 'Em Up came out, the detective asked. And KEEFE D replied saying, yeah, that pissed Combs off. Needless to say, the confession tapes had some pretty damning evidence. So will this evidence be used against KEEFE D in court? Well, it seems that this will be highly unlikely, as KEEFE D and the cops had entered into a proffer agreement. It is important to note that a proffer agreement is an agreement between the feds and a defendant that ensures government attorneys will not use any statements the defendant makes during an off-the-record interview against them in later proceedings. KEEFE D should have spoken to his attorney before heading to interviews, thinking that he had immunity. While KEEFE D's words to the feds in 2008 can't be used against him, what he did not know was that anything he said outside the interview room was fair game and would be used to prosecute him. In an interview, Greg Kading spoke about the proffer agreement between KEEFE D and the feds, saying, "The proffer agreement simply said that when you sit down and talk to us, whatever you say that is self-incriminating, we won't use against you." But when he leaves that room, that agreement doesn't apply to everything else in his life, as he erroneously believed, so he began to go out and boast about his involvement in the murder. None of that's protected under the agreement. He has essentially talked himself right into jail. Well, after writing his book and going on a media tour and narrating what happened, the cops started closing in on him. Earlier in July, cops raided KEEFE D's home in Henderson, Nevada. An affidavit filed to obtain the warrant states that police were looking for notes, writings, ledgers, and other handwritten or typed documents concerning television shows, documentaries, YouTube episodes, book manuscripts, and movies concerning the murder of Tupac Shakur. Apart from the electronics, investigators left the former gangster's home with USB and hard drives, photographs, a copy of Vibe magazine featuring Tupac, and a copy of the Compton Street Legends book co-authored by KEEFE D and Yusuf Ja. According to the warrant, investigators were generally searching for items that would provide evidence of motive or even reveal the identity of Tupac's killer. The ex-gangster knew that his goose was cooked and that it was only a matter of time before he was arrested. This is evident from his conversation with a cop during his arrest. In his words, he's involved in the biggest case in Las Vegas history and drops the exact date of Tupac's murder.
So what they got you for, man?
Biggest case in Las Vegas history.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Like recent?
September the 7th, 1996.
And with KEEFE D behind bars, rumor has it that it's not all rainbows and sunshine for the former gangster. News started spreading that KEEFE D was being roughed up in jail. The internet detective that everyone loves to hate was quickly on the case. DJ Vlad used his sources to try to authenticate the rumor. However, according to the YouTube star, the rumor was not true. DJ Vlad took to his X account where he offered clarity on the situation. There's a rumor going around that KEEFE D got beat up and stabbed in jail. I looked into it and it doesn't appear to be true. However, one fan on his comment section claimed claimed that KEEFE D had gotten into 2 fights with members of different gangs. Allegedly, he was in 2 fights, one with a Hoover and the other a Crip, according to some YouTuber. The user tweeted. DJ Vlad replied to this comment, assuring him that his sources that were close to the situation had assured him that nothing of that nature had occurred. I've now talked to multiple people close to the situation, and they all said nothing has happened to him, DJ Vlad replied. However, just 1 month later, Reggie Wright Jr. has dropped a bombshell regarding KEEFE D's situation. Reggie Wright Jr. previously worked at Suge Knight's Death Row Records, and his father was previously a gang enforcer at the Los Angeles Sheriff Department's unit Operation Safe Street in Compton. According to him, KEEFE D had been jumped 3 times already in jail.
I heard he done got whooped on about 3 times already in there. And I got that confirmed from a very, very good source. But nothing major, just, kicked, stomped, hit.
Well, it seems that KEEFE D is quickly learning that actions do indeed have consequences. Only time will tell whether the ex-gangster will finally be convicted for his role in Tupac's death. Deadly feud. So how did KEEFE D end up entangled in all this? KEEFE D was born on June 14, 1963, and was an intriguing figure in the crime world with ties to the California-based gang, the Southside Compton Crips. His life story is a mosaic of experiences that span gang affiliations, personal losses, and a significant time spent behind bars. Coming from a family of 6 brothers and 6 sisters, KEEFE D's upbringing was shaped by a backdrop of gang culture. His mother died from colon cancer in 1980 when he was only 15. In his 2018 memoir, KEEFE D revealed that in 2014, he got the same cancer that killed his mother, which may have emboldened him to come clean on his role in Tupac's death. Fortunately, or unfortunately, he's now in remission, which means that if found guilty, he may live out the rest of his life in jail. Apart from losing his mom to cancer, KEEFE D also lost 2 of his brothers, one from cancer and the other was shot in the streets of Compton. The tragic loss of one of his older brothers to a fatal shooting incident cast a shadow on his life journey. The ex-gangster was just 26 years old when he received the devastating news that his brother had been killed by individuals affiliated with the East Side Pirates, which is a testament to the harsh realities of the environment he grew up in. His life took a tumultuous turn as he found himself entangled in the world of crime. This path led him to spend over a decade within the walls of both state and federal prisons. His involvement in a range of criminal activities, notably the act of emptying 2 clips into the residence of a rival gang member, reflects the intense conflicts and rivalries that characterized his surroundings. His life in crime started way back in 1971 when he started getting involved with the Crips. As it turns out, it was due to peer pressure, as that was what all the boys in the neighborhood were doing. Later, he got a job working in Compton College. However, the money was not coming as fast as he had hoped, and that's when he turned to selling drugs, which turned out to be what he had expected money-wise. Eventually, the law would catch up to him, and he went to prison for dealing from 1985 to 1989. However, according to him, the time in prison didn't rehabilitate him, but instead made him a hardened gangster. After getting out of jail, KEEFE D was soon involved in the hip-hop industry with connections to iconic rapper Eazy-E and former drug kingpin Harry O, showing how powerful he became in the rap industry. Harry O is among the co-founders of Death Row Records, the record label that launched the careers of rap legends Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and Tupac Shakur. Harry O was not the only Death Row co-founder that KEEFE D had ties to. As he has revealed multiple times, KEEFE D and the infamous Suge Knight grew up together and, as we will see, would end up resenting each other. According to KEEFE D, he first met Death Row Records co-founder when he was 9 years old. As it turns out, their relationship dates back to their younger years, when they played Pop Warner football together. KEEFE D's role as a running back complemented Suge Knight's position as center, providing a glimpse into their earlier friendship and shared experiences. However, this would turn sour when KEEFE D met Sean Love Combs, alias P. Diddy, and formerly known as Puff Daddy. The origins of their relationship trace back to a moment when KEEFE D lent a lowrider to Usher for one of his music videos. The lowrider, loaned by KEEFE D and his associates, bore the brunt of the Usher's dance performance. Luckily, Diddy took responsibility and personally funded the repair of the vehicle, and later sparked off a friendship with KEEFE D. At the time, Diddy had founded Bad Boy Records, which was in competition with Death Row Records. But even before the 2 labels began beefing, there was an even larger feud brewing in the background, a feud that would suck them all in and lead to the deaths of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. In the mid-1990s, the hip-hop world was divided by a fierce rivalry between the East Coast Coast and West Coast scenes. The tension between these two coasts had been simmering for years, fueled by a sense of regional pride and competition. But it was the beef between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records that would take this rivalry to a whole new level. Hip-hop music and culture is widely considered to have originated on the East Coast, specifically in New York City. The East Coast rappers, with their gritty lyrics and boom-bap beats, were often perceived as feeling superior to other regional hip-hop cultures. On the other hand, the West Coast had developed an inferiority complex, as they felt overlooked and underestimated. By the late 1980s, however, the West Coast hip-hop scene was flourishing, led by acts such as NWA from Compton, California. Their raw and unapologetic style resonated with audiences, and they became a force to be reckoned with in the industry. This newfound success only fueled the rivalry between the coasts, as the West Coast artists aimed to prove themselves against the perceived dominance of the East Coast. In 1991, the tension between the coasts reached a boiling point when Bronx rapper Tim Dog released his album Penicillin on Wax. The album contained several skits that mocked West Coast artists, particularly the members of NWA, including Dr. Dre. One track in particular, titled Compton, took direct aim at the West Coast scene. This diss track, although not directly related to the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row, set the stage for what was to come. That same year, Suge Knight, a native of Compton and a Blood Gang member, co-founded Death Row Records in Los Angeles. Alongside Dr. Dre, Knight aimed to establish Death Row as a powerhouse in the West Coast hip-hop scene. Knight was among those in the West Coast hip-hop community who were irritated by the perceived condescension from the East Coast. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, a young Sean Combs had a vision of creating a New York-centered hip-hop label that would rival the dominance of the West Coast. In 1993, Combs founded Bad Boy Records, and the following year, the label's debut releases by Biggie and Long Island-based rapper Craig Mack became immediate critical and commercial successes. In 1994, New York-born, California-based rapper Tupac Shakur had released 2 successful albums and starred in 3 movies. However, his career was in jeopardy as he faced financial struggles and stood trial in New York City on charges of sexual abuse, sodomy, and weapons possession. On November 30th, 1994, a pivotal event occurred that would forever change the course of the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row. Tupac was shot 5 times and robbed while in New York. As he was taken out on a stretcher, Tupac gave the middle finger to Biggie and other Bad Boy affiliates who were present. This incident would become a turning point in the beef, as Tupac implied in an interview that Biggie and Puff were involved in or responsible for the attack at Quad Studios. Between the time of the interview and its publication, Puff Daddy visited Tupac at Rikers Island and assured him that Bad Boy was not involved in the shooting. However, the damage had been done, and Tupac's trust in his former friends was shattered. The events at Quad Studios, coupled with the perceived similarities between Biggie's album and Tupac's upcoming release, fueled the fire of animosity between the two artists and their respective record labels. In February 1995, a B-side track from Biggie's Big Papa single was released. The track was titled Who Shot Ya? And although Biggie and Puff Daddy denied any connection to the shooting at Quad Studios, Tupac interpreted the song as a direct taunt aimed at him. The lyrics and timing of the release only fueled Tupac's belief that Biggie and Bad Boy were involved in the attack. As the feud continued to gain momentum, the tension between the East Coast and West Coast hip-hop scenes reached a boiling point at the 1995 Source Awards in New York City. Here, Suge publicly dissed P. Diddy and escalated the already heightened tension between the two camps. Suge Knight took action to further solidify Death Row's alliance with Tupac. Knight secured Tupac's release from prison by posting his $1.4 million bond. He flew across the country and rented a limousine to pick up Tupac from Clinton Correctional Facility. With Tupac now a free man, he wasted no time in joining Knight and escalating the feud with Bad Boy Records. Tupac unleashed a series of diss tracks aimed at Biggie, Bad Boy, and their affiliates. Songs like the infamous Hit 'Em Up were filled with venomous lyrics and threats. Tupac's lyrics were shocking and explicit, leaving no doubt about his anger and desire for revenge. The climax of the rivalry came in the form of the murder of arguably hip-hop's finest to this day, Tupac, and KEEFE D revealed to the world what actually happened the night Tupac died. In his book KEEFE D, his nephew and 2 others decided to go to Club 662 for a Death Row after party, where Tupac was supposed to perform. According to KEEFE D, they had planned to shoot at their rivals, but after Tupac and Knight failed to show up for an hour and a half, KEEFE D called his crew off. Lucky for them, they never showed up because it would have been like Al Capone's Valentine's Day massacre if they had, he wrote. This came after Tupac and Death Row members attacked his nephew, Baby Lane. On their way home, the group stopped to buy alcohol. KEEFE D revealed that he put the Glock that he intended to use in the back of the car. They hopped back in the car and headed to their house. On the way, they saw Tupac with half of his body hanging out of a BMW as he waved to fans who were calling his name. They turned their Cadillac around and followed the BMW, stopping right next to them at a traffic light. The occupants in both cars looked at each other for a split second. Tupac then started to reach for his gun, and according to KEEFE D, that's when the fireworks started. The shooter, seated at the back of the Cadillac, rolled down the window and rapidly fired gunshots at Tupac's BMW. One of my guys from the back seat grabbed the Glock and started busting back, he wrote in his memoir. The rapper was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, once in the thigh. One of the bullets went into Shakur's right lung. Knight was hit in the head by fragmentation. They then sped off into the night. The group then ditched their vehicle and then popped bottles and partied like it was any other night. Well, KEEFE D's defense seems solid and the prosecution seems unable to use KEEFE D's confession tapes. The hip-hop world waits to see how the case will turn out, with millions hoping to see Tupac finally get justice. If you enjoyed this video, click on the boxes playing on your screen to watch similar content.